Whoop, I had already muted. Yep, recording is started.
Awesome. Okay. Welcome, everybody. So, third of three-part series. The goal of this has always been to show um, different pieces of functionality that one can build with little or no code. A lot of the features you get with CiviCRM Entity and really leveraging your Drupal CiviCRM site to the maximum. So, wanted to focus a little more on views today and just several different features that one can build with views and many Drupal modules that can be used with it. So I did provide some slides, mainly to have links to project pages, module project pages, and then a few gists on GitHub that include little code snippets or views exports that you can import into your site, and should be able to give you a starting place to use some of these features. So we're going to cover four different pieces of functionality, and we're going to start with charts. I touched on this a little before in part one, but I feel like this is a killer use case and killer feature, and you get a lot out of the box with this. If you're familiar with this module, the charts module, then you can start using it right away with no code with your city data. And I made an example of just a simple bar graph or column graph that is showing an aggregated totals of contributions by financial types. This is just one particular case that you could do. You can see we've got total amounts and fee amounts, which is for each of the four different types that you get out of a stock CiviCRM install. So we can see at a glance how much income is coming in by campaign contribution, by donation, event fees, membership dues, and these kinds of things we do, and usually to form the basis of maybe a dashboard that people can use. So I think that the power of views with CiviCRM is to be able to build these types of things, to build these custom dashboards, and to be able to put these little functional pieces anywhere on the website, whether the user has access to the full CiviCRM backend or not. And go through a little bit about how to do this. And if you do see on the slide, I did provide a export for this particular view that one could import to get started. And this is using a couple of principles. I've got a view. You see the base table is CiviCRM contributions, so we're just listing contributions, and it's pretty simple. And one could get much more advanced with the filtering and different things. So, like, let's say if you wanted to have an expose filter to um, get a chart for any period of time. So maybe you want the aggregate sum of contributions for a month or a year. And one could easily do that by adding expose filter with contribution date that came in. And you'll see here that other than just starting to make a view listing contributions, there's a couple of pieces that I had to do after that, which was set the format to chart, and we'll look at those settings. And listing contributions, I added a financial type, views relationship to the financial type, so that we can join into that, so that we can then aggregate the result set. So instead of just listing each contribution, we're using a feature in views called aggregation. And if you normally, when you look at a view, this advanced tab is closed, and you'll open it up, and you'll see that there's this use aggregation. You can check that and hit save, and then you will get aggregation settings for every field on the view and every filter. So I added a financial type field that was available after I added the relationship to use financial type. I added the fee amount field for the contribution, and added the total amount. And So what we want to do is just get the sums per financial type. So what we need to do when you have aggregation settings is group results together. So we want to group results by financial type. And then for each financial type, then we can apply any number of other aggregation types out of the box, and one of which is sum. And you'll notice there are others like average, minimum, maximum, and standard deviation if you get into that. And for each of these, I just set to sum. And I went into my chart settings, and you choose your chart type, you choose your charting library. I used Google Charts, but there are 3 or 4 other charting libraries that one can get into if you like the look and feel of one versus the other. And I encourage people just to try it out. I've only enabled the one type for right now, but there are several. There's updates to these libraries into this module quite often. So more stuff coming all the time in these different types of charts where you can do line graphs, pie charts, area charts, and different things. The bar and the column charts are the simplest and easiest to build. So when I set these up, I just choose my label field, which when we go back to the chart, we'll see. And then I set just colors, and you have to check the box provides data for each line. So you can see that I had 2 fields that I'm aggregating or summing together. So I include both of those in the view. I set the color. There are many other options. You can get into tooltips and titles and legends and make the chart 3-dimensional, get the sizes, do different coordinate systems, and some easy settings. So there's quite a bit you can do and build here just through configuration to achieve the goal. So, this took, 5 or 10 minutes to build. It is kind of simple, but you could imagine how you could get into quite a complex set of different things. Maybe you want to focus just on events, and you want to do the same type of thing, but you want to just have a chart of contribution sum per event that you made. Maybe you have donations coming in from multiple sources or multiple contributions paid. You could get sums per contribution page and things like that pretty easily. So that is charts. And if you look on the slides that I provided, there is a link to a gist. You can take this export code, you can just highlight the whole thing, copy it, and import into your system. And I think at the end, I'll try to point out how to do that a little bit. One of the powerful things about Drupal 8 is the management of configuration and exportable files, so that if you build something neat for one client or one site, you can export it, import it, and not have to rebuild everything from scratch for a different site. So link in the slides, you can check that out. You should be able to import that. If you need help importing the config, you can ping me in Mattermost, CiviCRM Entity channel. And I'm thinking that in the future, I may have a more developer-oriented session or blog article where we talk about how to do config exports and imports and various things for not this. And if you watch the last webinar episode, how to set up the contact or other entity displays, and you can import and export all that with the same mechanism. Moving on. There's recent development in ability to do calendars with Civi data. So what we have here is a calendar showing activities, and puts them on the calendar. So you can use this interface. You can filter this in a number of different ways: weekly, daily, monthly lists. It shows the event. You can control what is on here, and you also get a little pop-up that you can have more data if you need to. And you can also style this a little bit with your theme or whatever. If you can make this quite pretty and quite complex if you want to. And again, this is really quite simple. And there's one feature. So we released CiviCRM 8.x 3.0 beta 3 just yesterday, which has a new code in here that makes it possible to do the color highlighting. It took a lot of work to be able to make the be able to set the different colors by activity type. And with the most recent version of CiviCRM Entity, you can do that. And that was developed and contributed by Karen, Semper IT, and Matt Glavin. So shout out to them for contributing back. The view construction itself is fairly simple. I just made a view listing CiviCRM activities, no relationships, no contextual filters, just listing all. You can get into paging. There's a lot of complex things you can do with this. So I have the link to the project here, this full calendar view. There's information here and other documentation and other articles that you can find out. This is really powerful. It does recurring events, does some really cool stuff. So combining that. So you get your view, you create a view, you're listing just activities. We just need to add a couple of fields. You need the activity date and the activity end date. Now this activity end date is a new what we call pseudo field or computed field that was contributed by the same people, and so that we can have that on the disk. What this does is calculates the end date from the activity date to like a scheduled date, so you can get that date range. I added the activity subject, and then I added activity status, activity type ID, so that I could combine those things together into a global custom field. And if you go and look, this is available out of views. You can look at peer to your category, go to global, and you'll see this custom text. So what we're doing here is to be able to combine other different fields into one field, which we can then set to show in the activity in the calendar display. And you can use HTML formatting. So I wrap the subject in a heading, I put the status and the type. You can really, do any kind of HTML you want here. You can even include CSS in here if you want to do just a little style for this. And Drupal 8 uses Twig templating, and these fields are available when you look in the replacement pattern. So I just copy paste what I want and put them in here. So when you're building your view, you choose the format. And if you look, I have many, but there's this full calendar display. That's what is provided by the module that engages the library that makes that all possible. And there's some settings where you say what's the default date source. So that's like what month is showing or what day is showing when the view first loads. You can do the current date, which is common, like it's May. We can show the activities for May. You could also do date of first result. So like maybe you want to start your calendar at the first activity and fixed value. And you can, then you just need to choose the fields that we added. So we added the activity date and the end date on our view. We just set those here for the start date and end date properties. And then for the title field, I use this global, that custom text field I made because I want more information than just the title on there. So this is what I do to do those combining of things. And the special work that they provided is in the new modules to be able to have, this module was kind of designed to be used with Drupal nodes and taxonomy, and they have colors per bundle type, and bundles, if you know, are subtypes of entities. So what's going on now is that the activity types, and this also works for events, so event types have their own bundles, which makes it possible to choose the different colors for all the different types. You can see they're all here. Now, if you're building a calendar, you may be filtering by activity type. You may not have your full set of activities on the view, and you could definitely add an activity type filter, and you could start getting in and choosing the options, so you can limit your result set to the particular activities. You could have multiple calendars per activity type. Maybe you want to have one for cases. Maybe you have some other special activity types, so you can make a calendar for each and crank these out pretty quick. So I'm going to remove this because I didn't want it. And so again, really, once you get the modules installed, very simple to do. Does not take much time to get something that looks decent. And of course, you can really go crazy with this with custom theming and things if you want to. So that is calendars. Okay. One of my favorite things to do is mapping, and there are a number of options that are readily available for using CiviCRM data. Now we know that CiviCRM has geocoding capability, so when you enter an address for a contact, you can connect it to a service. You can get the longitude and latitude from the address, and once you have longitude and latitude, you can start getting into mapping solutions. One we started off with here is called the Leaflet, and this provides the library and the JavaScript to be able to load these different maps. There is a ton of submodules and other additions that one can add to all this. So some of the common ones that I have is you need to install Leaflet. There's a Leaflet views module. And then there's marker clustering, so that if you're looking at the whole map and maybe you have 100 markers, say around one particular city, it will show up as one item on the map, and then you can click into that. It'll zoom in, and you can see the other markers. So less clutter. And I'm going to show you what I installed to the modules. So there is the last bit. Once you get Leaflet and marker cluster and Leaflet views installed, there is a submodule of the project that's been available for a couple of releases called CiviCRM Entity Leaflet. And you need to install that. And when you get all that installed, you will be able to build a map that's something like this. I don't have a ton of data on this one, but you can see that I had marker clusters involved, and if I click in here, it'll zoom and we get the map, and we are looking at the pretty simple display. And this will go into a little bit about how to make these things, but it shows the you can have as much information. Now this particular view is a list of contacts. And another feature that we have here is a proximity filter, so that you can easily provide ability to filter by like a rounded circle with 50 miles within a particular address. And this is using the CiviCRM geocoding facilities to actually, so when you enter in information here, it is taking the address, and you enter, and you can say I want to be within 50 miles of Dallas, and it will automatically filter the results set, and you can see we're zoomed in on our 3 contacts that we have that were in that area. So contacts is great. We may not be making maps of addresses of contacts a lot. It just depends, and that may be more of an admin view. It can up to you. And I do want to show you a couple things, but I'm going to build a view that shows all the events and where they are. So that way I can go through step by step, and you can see how it can be built in pretty quickly, including this proximity filter. So I did provide a export for the contact view that has what you just saw there. It's listing contacts relating to the address, getting the proper information on there. And but now I want to build one. So event locations, I've already built one. So this is a map that just shows the upcoming events and their locations on the map. And I've already built it, but I want to I think I have time, and it's not hard to do. So I think that we could step through this entire thing. Get my zoom. So I want to start a view, listing events, make a page, call it event locations 2. That's fine. And here you can when you install the CiviCRM Entity address leaflet module, you will get this format right here. And you can choose that as your display format. So we're showing those of events. You can have your pager still. So when you start off, you've got your listing events, but it doesn't know about the data yet. And we got to get to the address of the event. So how do we get from the event? Now, if you know that when you create an event in CiviAdmin, there's a location tab. You enter the address. When you save that, CiviCRM geocodes it. So we need to add a relationship. So we're starting from events, and then we need to get to the location block. And there is a separate entity type that is the location block. So I'm going to add this relationship. Okay, now we need to, there's also a location block kind of combines many different elements. You can actually enter 2 or 3 addresses and other things about the location, like emails and other things. And we need to dig into the addresses. It's a little confusing, and you'll see here there's 2 of them because you can have 2 addresses associated with events. The first one is the one to use, and I'll show you how to tell the difference. But so just go with the first one, add that relationship. You can see that it's using the location block relationship that we just added right here. So I'll apply that. So now I can dig in and get to my addresses. So I know that I'm going to need the longitude and the latitude fields. Add that. These aren't displaying really, so you can exclude from display or you can not. It really doesn't matter. You can scale it a number of digits to the right. Now this depends on how accurate you want to get it. I like to use like 4. So when you look at a longitude, it'll be like -37.234. And to be the most exact, you need to add a little scale there. I think CiviCRM stores to the 8th decimal place or something like that. So add longitude. Add the latitude. Same deal. Pro tip, if you have a bunch of events, you may have addresses or that aren't geocoded. It happens sometimes. Maybe you had all these events before the geocoding. And especially if you're doing contacts and addresses, maybe you want to, maybe you want to filter by longitude and just say not empty, so that it has a value. So your view is returning only results that are geocoded. And then, especially if you have a pager, you don't want to get a result set that has a bunch of addresses that aren't geocoded, and your map is blank, and you're like, why are there no markers showing up? And that's a common reason why. So I often just set that. Is not empty, not null. And we have our event title here. We could you can do the same technique that I was showing on the calendars, where say maybe you want to have the marker pop up, have the event title. Maybe you want it to have the description too. So maybe I add the description. And maybe I want to combine those together. So I'll find my global text field. Get my replacement patterns. And maybe I want this to be kind of a heading. And then maybe I want my description. Pop that in there. Then so now I've got my setup. The most importantly, you've got to have the longitude and latitude to get the markers to show up. So then when you go to settings here for your format, I choose the latitude field. Don't swap these around backwards, or you'll wonder why your markers are showing up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And longitude, most of these defaults you can keep this the same. So this is like a copy paste modify of a plugin of the format that comes with the Leaflet views module. So we kind of it wasn't really meant to directly handle a longitude and latitude. It liked to use a geo field or some other Drupal field types, but we made it happen that way. And I put my field here. I believe there's a little bug with the title field there. So the description field here is working good. Maybe I'm going to set my height to 600. There's a lot of options here. You can play around with these, whether you want to let people zoom, where do you want to zoom into? By default, it's gonna try to make the zoom level large enough to contain all the markers in the result set. You can force a zoom to a certain place if you want. You can set the zoom level. I believe there's about 18. Yeah, 1 to 18. There's a lot of options you can get into, like what are the markers? Are they using an image? Circles, you can make your own images. You can get into adding classes so you can style them. You can get into a lot of options there. And if you're going to use and you have installed the marker cluster library, you just come down here, check that box. And if you read the documentation here, you'll see there's lots of options. The defaults are good for me, but there's a ton of options. Trust me, read the documentation. You can get into a lot of stuff. Hit apply, and we should be ready to go having a map. And you can see that it's already displaying here. We've got 2 marker clusters. I click on one and it spreads them out, and you can see the little pop-up with the title and the description. The other thing that is handy, if you have a lot of, if you're having events all over the country or whatever your use case is, maybe you need to have the proximity filter. So that came in, that filter is available. It's associated with the address entity. And if you just start typing proximity, it'll come up here. So this is custom filter type. I want to expose this to other users. Now there's one limitation that we ran into with this, and that was the country. There was a bug in Drupal views that has prevented us from having the country field on here where you can select the country, which then would update the list of state provinces. And until that Drupal bug gets merged into Drupal, I don't know quite how to make that work. We tried, but it was tricky. So if you are not in the United States, we've hard-coded it in the module to the United States. If you want other countries, there is just one little line of code you can change, and that is an opportunity to also have a little bit of customization, because additional feature to this module, or maybe you want to be able to have the view creator select which country is by default. So let's see, I exposed it, nothing to add, and our proximity filter is there showing up. So now I save my view. You can mess with this pagers too. Right now I'm showing 10 results. I've got a small result set, but you can add this, and then if you're building an event map, maybe you want to filter by location or add whatever other exposed filters, which you can definitely do. And let's see, I've saved it. So this is a page, and I'm just going to go up here and go look at it. And we built a pretty cool little map in 5 minutes. And what I like about this module and what we're trying to do is give people these basic pieces, so it's not hard to do the basic things, so that your time that you're spending working on your client or building your site can be really making it a style awesome or custom theme or whatever you're doing, so that the basic functionality is there for you, so your time is spent on making more awesome. So you can see that worked out of the box. There's no custom code involved with this at all right here. So anything you get on when you install the module, you get. I did not export this particular view, and I guess I could add a gist, but I did add one for the context, and I'm hoping that you can look at this webinar and maybe try it out yourself. I want to get into something now where showing off a little, maybe we want even more advanced things. Like that's a pretty great map, but there are other modules that you can use with CiviCRM Entity, and you can actually add Drupal fields to the CiviCRM entities. So this Drupal Geo Location Field is something that is been around a long time, a lot of development, tons of features, and you can read more about it. And so we thought, you know, this is really cool because we like Google Places, maybe to have more advanced type searching and filtering. And so we use this geolocation field to be able to make something like this, where we have a map, we've got a list of things, and you can actually click on here and, you know, the results get filtered back and forth, and you get ability to search Google Places. So like when you go to maps.google.com and you're searching for things, you can search for restaurants or whatever. You could do the same thing here. And what it's going to do is find results from your search that are near what you type in. So, you know, you can type in Washington, D.C., and I think, yeah. And this should filter, whoops. What did I do wrong? My internet's a little slow, so what did I do wrong? There it goes. So what I did there was just click enter, and it's going to load the map up, and it's going to show me all the locations for my result set for near that area. It's streaming kind of slow because of the Zoom call right now. Yeah, it's still waiting. I know there was markers around here. Live demo. Too much lag. Okay, so the point is, I guess I didn't have any results. I didn't have it close enough. But you can.
I'm glad I'm not the only person that happens to sometimes.
So roll with the punches. But how do we do this? So this one's a little more complex. This one needed a little code. Oh, there it is, coming in now. But so what do we do? So first thing, we need our geolocation field. So we have to add a Drupal field to the address entity. So we had to go to structure, and when you install it, but by default, you see a lot of entity types. We needed this on the address. So I go to CiviCRM, city address. I go to manage fields. I had installed geolocation module already, so we add our field. We just called it field geolocation. Default settings were good enough for us. And then we needed a way, so this is actually Drupal fields, so the data is stored in Drupal database in the field tables. And so we need to make the connection between the address, Civi's address, where it geocodes it. We need to move that long and lat over to this field storage. And so that's where you need a little glue code. I did put this just in the presentation slide. It's pretty simple here. We're doing it on contacts, and we were really just wanting the primary address of the contact. So we did a little hook entity type update. So you can see a module map, module name map customs, and then we have the entity type, which is contact. So every time a contact is updated, this code is going to run. And then we're not doing anything for organizations. We just wanted it for a particular contact type. And so then we wanted to get the address, and the CiviCRM API will return the primary address as an address ID property. So if there was a result, we're going to load the Drupal version, the Drupal entity programmatically, so that we can actually get access to the Drupal fields and programmatically set them. So you'll say, if the address has these are the properties. So on the address in CiviCRM, you got geo_code_1, geo, this is lat, and this is long. And then this, you see here, we're just setting the value for the field that we had created over there. Set the long and the lat and the long properties to the properties from the Civi data. So we're moving that data from the Civi address table and popping it in the Drupal field table, and then we're just saving. So then once you have that, you can make your view with the addresses on there. And it's a little complicated to make a setup like this, but I don't have time to go into the whole thing, and it is, I do want to show it if I can. I'm going to reload the page. Not sure why we're dragging so much here. Here's what I want. Edit the view. This is actually two views. One is for the map, one is for the listing. And so we made one a views attachment of the other. And so we started with our map. Actually, it was starting with the list, and we have a bunch of different fields. Whoops. And then we added an attachment. If you can see this, when you say add a display, there's an attachment. That's what this map is. We already had our list view here, so that's just the list of contacts that was in the left bar. And then, so we're attaching the one view to the other, so they both show at the same time. And you can set some, whether you're inheriting the filters and who can access and what to attach to. And when you install the geolocation module, you'll see this format, geolocation common map. The main thing you need here is that geolocation field that we added to the address, which is available in views. So you just add that on here. We had some other things in here because this actually had a feature where you could click on one thing or click on an area, and it would filter the result set based upon what your map zoom level was. And I'm not showing the code for that. That was a little more complicated, but that much, not too much. And that may be more appropriate to do in a blog article, because it does get a little technical. But honestly, it's 50 lines of code, so it's not that complicated. And so you just look here, geolocation source field, use your source thing. You can do titles, and you can look at all the options. Like we had a custom icon for the marker, and you can get into all kinds of settings, which may be beyond the scope here. Suffice to say, there's a ton of options you can get into. There's documentation available. You can choose your map provider. The geolocation provides several, and you can get into all kinds of stuff. So whether you want to show the road view or the earth look, zoom controls, marker clustering is available here too. So lots of things. You can imagine really going some places. And this also can handle shapes and beyond the scope of this, but to be able to overlay, like you can store with these geolocation fields bike trails and show the whole trail, or you can do shapes of any kind of dimension. It's really cool. So you can really build up layers of different things on one map. So you could talk about that for an hour, but I don't have time. Just want to show that it's possible, and some coding required, but just that one snippet that I showed with all you need to get the data moved over to the geolocation, and you can do a lot with what you got out of the box. So, which I did put in the slide here as it is that I was showing. I was going to show the last, this was the actual in our code repo. And I can show you what modules we installed: the geolocation module, the Google Maps API, and the Google Places API to get the nice filtering. So that's pretty cool. Thanks, Google. Last thing I want to talk about is views bulk operations, which I think is one of the most powerful features of views that not everything that we had done in Drupal 7 has been ported over to Drupal 8 yet, but I wanted to make an example to show that it's really not that hard to develop these things. So what does views bulk operations do? You've got your view, your listing, whatever you're listing, and maybe you want to do some actions. Maybe you want to send an email. Maybe you want to add them to a group. Maybe you want to add them to a tag. Maybe you want to do something totally custom. Maybe you're doing an import. The import went bad. You need to change one value in thousands of contacts. So anytime you need to run one operation for every entity in the results set, you start to think about views bulk operations. You know. Sky's the limit with these things. Now you see when you have in CiviCRM, you go to advanced search, you get a result set, and there's some actions up there. This is basically providing that same functionality and in a common API way to make that happen. So one thing that we needed, everything here that we're showing is just stuff we needed for clients. And so really common is to be able to do a complex filtering of contacts and just add them to a group. And whether you do this in the back end or in Civi as it is, or whether you do this with the view, it just depends on maybe which is easier and how to do the filtering, or if you're providing a display for other non-Civi admin users to do the action. So I thought, okay, well, let's make a add user to group functionality. So this is where you can pick some contacts or all of them. So this is just a list of contacts, and I'm going to go into how the view's made, but really simple. So I just want to add myself to a group, and my action is showing up here. I've selected a contact, applied selected items, and it'll show you what items you're selected. Maybe you want to add to the group active members. Execute the action. It'll run the batch process. The cool thing about the batch process is that you can do this operation on even 100,000 records if you needed to, which is another advantage to views bulk operations versus some things in Civi, is that you can do these very large actions. It may take an hour or two to run through the 100,000 contacts to do a particular action. And so if you don't have a batch process on Civi side, you could get PHP timeouts or PHP memory errors. And what Drupal's batch API does is break the operation down into little bits, and each one is a PHP request so that you don't have the PHP timeouts or the memory errors. So if you ever need to do anything on 100,000 contacts, this is how you start to do it. Is this the kind of thing you can set, you can just walk away, let it do its thing, and check on it. In this case, let's say I wanted to add 100,000 contacts to a particular group. I could actually filter this, is the user in this group with a filter, and so like if something does go wrong or whatever, you could then restart this thing with only those ones that haven't been added to the group yet. So what's going on in here? Now, this piece of code that makes this possible didn't make it into the next release, but it is merged into GitHub. So if you are pulling your code from the official GitHub repo, you can have this now. And I'm going to show you what the code is over here if you want to patch your stuff or whatever. So this is just a really simple list. This is just a list of contacts. So I've got base table CiviCRM contact, which is up here. You see base table CiviCRM contact, and you can make operations available for particular entity types. So you may have an operation that makes sense to have for all entity types. You may have an operation that only makes sense for specific entity type. You can do that. You add your if you look here, it's under this category global. You get this bit here just by installing views bulk operation module. So you check this box, add the field. I've already added the field. we don't have many actions yet. We had save, we had modify values, we had delete on in Drupal 7, and we'll get there with that. And I wanted to really think about how I was going to do that. So add to group was kind of low hanging fruit and simple. And, naturally it would be nice to have remove from group action. And I'm going to show you the code a little bit just to say, look, this is not that hard. When you saw me add, run through the action, there was only a few groups available in the drop down when I was executing the action. And that's because we had a little configuration here where we could choose which groups are allowed to be chosen on the view when you do the operations. So this way you can design specific views for specific cases. Maybe you're given a client or whoever the ability just to add a certain set of contacts to a certain group, and you can limit it and take all the guesswork out for their experience. And so right now, just the one action. We will have more, and I really think that this is something that many other people could do rather easily, since I provided this example. And I just wanted to show you that I was part of administrators. I added the to the active members group, and they're showing up for my contact back on that side. So I mean, people look at this code and they're like, oh man, what is all this? It's complex. What I don't know what any of this means, blah, 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 blah. It's 180 lines long, but man, honestly, there's only like 4 things to change here to do a different group. All right. Most of this is going to be the same every time you make one of these. So you need, these are called annotations, which Drupal's plugin discovery system uses to add the plugin to the necessary spots. In this case, as an option in the views bulk operation field. So I give it a unique ID. I give it the action name, what entity types I want it to be available for, whether you want a confirmation step. The class name here should be the same name as the file and in the right directory. All of this, rest of this can be the same. All this the same, this the same. Don't need to worry about it. There's one function that's just the execute function. So if I was to make this for remove contact from group, I would copy everything the same, change those few things, change my little API call to, instead of adding or saving a group contact entry, I would just delete it. So to replicate for remove groups, really simple. There's a function method here on the object to build pre-configuration form. This is where I'm getting to my allowed groups on the form. It's pretty simple. Maybe you want different options. And I think this code here gives the base outline of how to get all those features. So I have the pre-configuration form, which is showing on the views. This build configuration form is what shows when you execute the action. So I have a selected groups, and I get my groups as from what I saved from the pre-configuration. You can do access control, whole broad subject, and then these are just little functions that do some of the API calls and things. So I can abstract the different pieces of functionality out so that these important bits that are going to be the same every time. It's easy to see, just you need to change this little thing. So I encourage other people to try to make these yourself. If you try it out and have a problem, give me a ping on CiviCRM Mattermost and we'll work it out. And I think that there's not much to change. So we did get through it all. So that's today's presentation, folks. If anybody's got questions or anything, we've got a couple of minutes before we end here. And we got a question: what CiviCRM theme are we using? So the so maybe like you're talking about this theme here. That's nice. This is the Olivero theme. In Drupal 8, it's a contrib module, but this is going to be the new default theme in Drupal 9. So if you're installing for Drupal 9, you'll have it for free, and it's there. So we use that a lot just because it's a really nice menu. You know, you can change a couple of things with style. You get a lot of good stuff that you don't have to free. Maybe you have a little style change, a change of color or a few things, but it looks nice. On the Civi admin side, what did I do? Let's see what I've got, if I can remember. This is just 7. This is just 7. This comes stock with CiviCRM too. So if you go to appearances, what did I have? I like this at minimal one too. If you haven't tried at minimal, I highly encourage trying that one out too. That one is cool. Maybe that's what I did have it for CiviCRM. It was at minimal, so that's what it was at minimal. Yeah, I find that it really works good, and it's nice and clean. Works as good as 7. So. And I guess we could show people that. Yeah, this was a minimal. And this here where it's white, if you're not aware, there's an extension called Shortage. So this is a CiviCRM. At some point, I think it was 5.13, somewhere around there, they had this Shortage, and you can actually have different themes for CiviCRM now, which you can choose. This is Shortage, and yeah, I mean, if you don't know about that one, it's just this Shortage, and you kind of want to match to the right version, but there, it's at certain point, certain versions require a higher version of CiviCRM, but I'm probably at about beta 1 right now. I don't think I've updated since then. So this is pretty fast moving. They're doing a lot of releases. And I found that either 7 or at minimal works best with Shortage. So I hope that shows people some of the potential, some of the non-code things you can do, some of the things you can do with a little code, and that's going to be the end of the webinar series. And if people have questions or other things that they'd like to know about, reach out to me, whether it's on CiviCRM Mattermost or our contact form at Skvare, and just ask, because we're, I can talk about a million different things, and what do people want to know about? I'm thinking about some, like I said, a little more developer-centric type things at some point for some people, to really see what can you do underneath the hood with this module. But there's plenty of other things we can talk about too. So just let me know. And I think that's all I got. I think, Sarah,
All
we
right.
can call it a
good. Good timing on that, right?
Made it through an hour, perfect.
Yeah, that worked really nicely. All right, yep. Thanks everybody for joining us. I think everybody has had a chance to get the link for the presentation slides that is in the chat, but give you one more minute if you want to pull up the chat window and copy and paste that link out.
Oops. I was trying to find. We do have a YouTube channel, Skvare YouTube channel, and this recording and the previous webinars will be there, so you can watch this later. Oops,
and this one's recorded, so we'll be putting this up as well. But
I think they're in the blog too.
And they're in the blog, yeah. So we're all over the place. So I appreciate everybody's attention, and look forward to more improvements to CiviCRM Entity and more features and discussion to come. Thank you.
Thank you.